Before the world erupted into chaos, its fate was shaped by fragile alliances.
World War I explained.
We cannot delay this any
Europe
longer. The
stands
stakes
on the
too high.
brink of a conflict no one can control. Across the Balkans, nationalist fires burn hotter every day.
We must act
Old
now to secure our
empires
borders.
struggle to
The
contain
Balkans are
rising
the key.
unrest.
We cannot falter.
One shot in a crowded street will change the world. The assassination sparks a chain reaction across Europe. Alliance ties pull nations into an unstoppable march to war. Millions answer the call as mobilization begins. The Western Front collapses into brutal trench warfare. Artillery becomes the deadliest force on the battlefield. No man's land becomes a place of terror and sacrifice. Chemical weapons unleash a new level of fear. Innovation accelerates as new machines reshape combat. On the Eastern Front, vast distances bring relentless hardship. Winter itself becomes a fierce and unforgiving enemy. Across deserts and mountains, the Ottoman front stretches wide. At Gallipoli, bravery meets impossible odds. At sea, battleships and submarines change naval warfare forever. U-boats threaten every ship that dares to cross the ocean. Civilians endure shortages, fear, and heartbreaking loss. Societies transform as war demands everything from everyone. The conflict spreads far beyond Europe's borders. In the Middle East, new fronts emerge under burning skies. Millions flee their homes in search of safety. The Battle of the Somme becomes a symbol of unimaginable cost. Medical teams fight to save lives amid constant devastation. Verdun becomes a test of endurance with no equal. Innovation pushes soldiers to adapt or perish. Air reconnaissance reshapes strategy from above. Endless exhaustion drives armies to the breaking point. Across the Atlantic, America watches the world at war. A sunken liner shifts the tides of public opinion. The United States finally enters the battlefield. Fresh American divisions bring new strength to the Allies.
This
The
strategy
Central
is flawed.
Powers
We must
weaken
reconsider our
under
approach
mounting
immediately.
pressure.
Now, end the war.
Allied forces coordinate their final powerful offensives. Peace talks begin as collapsing fronts force change. After years of destruction, the guns fall silent at last. Nations begin rebuilding from the ashes of war. New treaties redraw borders and reshape the future. The Great War's legacy echoes through every generation.
The world once plunged into a darkness so vast, humanity would be forever changed.
World War II explained.
The world's fragile peace shattered as old wounds reopened after World War I. Across the Pacific, another storm gathered as Japan sought dominance. The world's descent into war became irreversible when Germany invaded Poland. A new kind of warfare, fast, brutal, unstoppable, swept across Europe. With Europe falling, Britain became the last barrier against tyranny in the West. High above the English Channel, a desperate struggle for survival began. In the shadows of war, unimaginable cruelty took shape. Hitler's ambition turned eastward, igniting the largest land invasion in history. A single morning attack would pull the United States into the global inferno. A nation united its factories, fleets, and spirit for total war. In the scorching deserts, armies clashed for control of vital supply routes.
In the frozen north, a city starved but refused to fall.
Winter became a merciless enemy for invading forces. On the vast Pacific, aircraft carriers became floating battlegrounds.
From factories to front lines, women reshaped the war's outcome.
Across occupied Europe, ordinary people became heroes in the shadows. The struggle for Stalingrad would become the turning point of the entire war. Amid unimaginable loss, the Soviet stand halted Hitler's advance. Allied forces gathered for the greatest seaborne invasion in history. On the beaches of Normandy, courage overcame impossible odds. After years of darkness, a city rose with unstoppable hope. Allied forces marched toward the heart of a collapsing regime. In winter's grip, the last major German offensive erupted with brutal force. As the war closed in, ordinary people faced unimaginable ruin. From the east, a relentless tide pressed toward the final objective, Berlin. The capital of the Third Reich fell in a storm of fire and rubble. In an underground bunker, a dictator faced the collapse he had created. At last, war in Europe ended, unleashing a wave of joy and relief. Across the Pacific, brutal battles raged from island to island. On volcanic sands, one of the fiercest battles of the Pacific took shape. In the Pacific night skies, devastation reigned upon a sprawling city. The final steps toward Japan came at a staggering cost. In secret laboratories, a weapon unlike any before it was being forged. A single flash reshaped the fate of millions and the world. 3 days later, another city faced the unimaginable. At last, the guns fell silent across the Pacific. Humanity looked upon the ruins and wondered how to rebuild. Millions uprooted by war searched for homes, hope, and healing. Nations gathered to ensure the world would never face such devastation again.
From the ashes of global conflict, a new era began. Every page of history holds a conflict unseen yet deeply felt.
Cold War explained. In 1945, victory brought peace, yet a new rivalry rose from the ashes. Lines were drawn across a continent, struggling to rebuild. When a city was cut off, hope arrived from the sky. Nations united to defend a fragile peace. A single blast ended America's nuclear monopoly. Fear spread faster than truth. War erupted on a divided peninsula. A new force surged across the frozen border. A general turned president held firm in a tense world. A cry for freedom shook Budapest. Humanity looked upward for dominance. A downed plane shattered trust. Concrete became a symbol of division. A small island prepared to defy a giant. A failed invasion deepened the crisis. The world inched closer to nuclear fire. Hidden missiles shocked Washington. A president warned the world.
Steel ships held the line between peace and annihilation. One choice eased the world's breath. For a moment, hope flickered. A distant conflict became a global battleground. Dreams of freedom met the weight of tanks. A cautious thaw softened decades of tension. A single handshake reshaped global politics. The regional conflict threatened global stability. A new battleground strained an empire. A bold American stance took center stage. High-tech visions reached for the stars. Workers challenged a rigid system. An empire weakened from within. A reformer stepped forward. A silent disaster shattered trust. Change began with the smallest fracture. A divided world reunited in joy. The superpower that shaped the century dissolved. The Cold War ended, but its echoes remain.
History becomes clearer when we open its forgotten pages.
Korean War explained.
After World War II, a new divide splits the Korean peninsula.
Comrades,
Two
let us
rival
march forward
governments
together.
rise,
Today,
each
we
claiming
establish a
to be
new
the true
republic.
Korea.
Border clashes
Tension
intensify
builds along a
as both
fragile
sides
border
claim the
ready
entire
to
peninsula.
erupt. On June 25,
Install
1950,
Huh!
war explodes with a sudden invasion. Seoul collapses under overwhelming North Korean force. The United Nations steps in, vowing to defend South Korea. American troops arrive, thrust into a war far from home. South Korean and UN forces make a desperate stand at Busan. Millions flee, caught in the chaos of a war they never chose. MacArthur's bold Incheon landing seeks to turn everything around. UN forces retake Seoul after fierce urban battles. The momentum grows as troops advance deep into the north. China enters the war, unleashing a massive counterattack. UN forces retreat in freezing, brutal winter conditions. At Chosin Reservoir, troops fight through ice and fire. Against all odds, the surrounded forces battle their way out. Seoul falls once more as Chinese forces surge south. A renewed UN offensive pushes the enemy back again. For the third time, Seoul is liberated from occupation. A long, bloody stalemate grips the mountains and trenches. In the sky, jet fighters clash in revolutionary air combat. Naval power pounds enemy positions along the rugged coastline. Communication becomes lifelines amid chaos and confusion. Night raids turn darkness into deadly opportunity. Medics save lives under fire, becoming quiet heroes. Tanks clash across hills and valleys in armored duels. Supply convoys battle harsh terrain, weather, and danger. In muddy trenches, soldiers endure weeks of unending strain. The invisible wounds of war weigh heavily on weary troops. Prisoners of war face fear, uncertainty, and rare reunions. Peace talks begin, but progress crawls at a painful pace. Propaganda becomes a weapon, fighting for hearts and minds. Strategic hills become deadly battlegrounds for both sides. Triangle Hill turns into one of the war's bloodiest fights. Another harsh winter freezes both armies in place. Both sides push hard in final offensives before peace. After 3 brutal years, an armistice finally stops the guns. A fortified border emerges, dividing Korea to this day. Millions remain separated, longing for families they lost. The war's legacy still shapes Korea and the world today.
Welcome. Today, we journey through the Vietnam War with clarity and compassion.
Vietnam War explained. Vietnam's struggle began under French colonial rule. A revolutionary voice rises. Ho Chi Minh. During World War II, Japan seized Vietnam. Vietnam declares independence with newfound hope. But peace collapses as France returns. A decisive victory reshapes Vietnam. Vietnam is split into North and South. In the South, Ngo Dinh Diem rises to power. Across the countryside, the Viet Cong tighten their grip. American advisors intensify training for South Vietnam. A sudden clash at sea pulls America deeper into war. American ground troops land on Vietnamese soil. Airstrikes intensify as the war escalates. Combat turns into a struggle against the jungle itself. Beneath the ground, an entire world of tunnels exists. Search and destroy becomes a central U.S. tactic. A secret lifeline keeps North Vietnam supplied. The first major clash between U.S. forces and the North. Helicopters redefine battlefield mobility. A dangerous chemical is released across the land. The city of Hue becomes a brutal battleground. A massive nationwide assault shocks the world. Even the American embassy is struck. One incident becomes a symbol of tragedy. Back home, protest grows louder each day. The U.S. begins shifting responsibility. The war expands beyond Vietnam's borders. Hanoi faces some of the heaviest bombardments. Many soldiers endure captivity. Talks begin to end the long conflict. American troops slowly come home. North Vietnam launches its final push. Saigon collapses in chaos. Victory arrives for the North. Vietnam becomes one nation again. Many veterans return home forever changed. Vietnam rebuilds from decades of conflict. The war leaves lessons for generations.
Understanding history helps us build a more peaceful future.